Hi, hope you're doing okay out there in YouTube land. So one of the things that's got me really excited about film, and this is the first video that I've done for this site, and it's something I've not done before. It's just talking about an up-and-coming film and some of my thoughts about it, what might happen, what its box office chances are, how it's going to sell, and that film is Dune. So what's known about the film so far is what we know from the trailer. It's got top-notch casting. If you've seen the David Lynch original, just fix my hair, version from 1984, when you watch the trailer you can kind of spot this is the Max von Sydow character, this is the Carl McLachlan, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of good actors in the David Lynch Dune, but this is going right up a notch. You know, you got Javier Bardem, Charlotte Rampling, Oscar Isaac, to name but three, Jason Momoa, and so on. And you've got great casting for your two young roles, two of the hottest stars in the world, teen stars. Well, they might be in the early 20s now, I'm not sure, but Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. Zendaya, I think, is a great presence. She's very good in the show on Sky Atlantic. And now I can't remember what it's called. This may happen, but it was really cool teen drama. A lot of drug taking, quite heavy. She's very good. Timothée Chalamet is the hottest young actor in the world, I think, at the moment. He's like the new DiCaprio. When DiCaprio first came out in What's Eating Gilbert Grape and This Boy's Life and Basketball Diaries, it was like, oh, this young guy's really, really good. I thought, anyway. I think Chalamet's like that. He's got a great look that young women, young girls, boys, men are gonna. You know, he's got that appeal, but he's got acting chops. He's already had an Oscar nomination for Call Me by My Name, and if you go on Netflix, there's a film called The King by the Australian director. His name escapes me, but he did Animal Kingdom, and he's really good, and he's great in that. He really carries the film. So that, for starters, is going to, I think, create a layer of appeal. It may get youngsters, younger people into the cinema to see this, because this is a hard sell. Now, I haven't read the Frank Herbert book. I don't read much fiction. But I know from friends who have, this is a monster book. This is the biggest selling science fiction book of all time. And one of the reasons the Lynch version came and stuck in places, although there is a lot of love for it, is they just couldn't fit it all into one book. Now, I think Villeneuve, we'll come to him, is Denis Villeneuve, the French-Canadian director, is trying to do it in two parts, I think. So I think we'll have some of the book, and then we'll get the next bit. But it's a proper universe. I think Frank Herbert, I suspect, is probably like the first science fiction book, and this is why it's so influential. It's a world builder. It has a whole world inside this novel, a society with religion, with planets, with different cultures. And the Lynch version got this, quite interesting production design in that, quite nautical, I sort of thought. But it's quite camp, the Lynch version, and the surreal sort of elements that we love from David Lynch films. I like them in the film, but it doesn't quite work for an audience at that point that's weaned on Star Wars and things like that. So this film, Star Wars owes a debt to the Dune mythology. Obviously, the Joseph Campbell Hero of a Thousand Faces was a massive source for him. But the character that's going to be played by Timothée Chalamet, Paul Atreides, effectively he is going to be the kind of, he's like the Luke Skywalker, the saviour, the figure, as it were. But Dune's kind of more dour, and that's my thing. This is adult sci-fi. So that's going to be a tough sell. Interestingly enough, I put a little clip of the trailer up on Facebook, and a guitar pupil of mine popped up, and he's 63, and he said, oh, this is my favourite book when I was a teenager, as a teen, and I loved the David Lynch film. So that's quite interesting. You've got a guy 63 who's going to be really interested in seeing this film. And the book came out in 1965, so a lot of people who read that book will now be potentially 70, 68, getting into pensionable age, as it were. So this actually gives a wide demographic to this film. You've got your early younger silvers in their 60s, and you've got potential teen audience who like Chalamet and Zendaya, who might be drawn to it, and also the huge spectacle. There hasn't been something like this, you know, a kind of big book since The Lord of the Rings. So, you know, what's its box office prospects? If I was to pick a comparison, Villeneuve's previous film, which I thought was tremendous, which was Blade Runner 2049, his sequel to Blade Runner, the cost of that film, it says on Wikipedia, was between 150 and 185 million dollars. So we'll pick the mean average was about 170 million dollars. Now, if you add on the print advertising, they had quite a big advertising push. That you're probably looking at a negative cost of about $300 million for that film. Now, its box office gross was $260 million, which meant what that returned to the studio was probably about $140 million. So that means the actual release of the film had a negative loss of $160 million, I would guess. Okay, there's TV rights and there's Blu-ray, 4K, stuff like that, and obviously Blade Runner 2049 is going to have a big appeal with that. So did Blade Runner 2049 make a profit? I think once the Blu-ray sales and once your TV rights, stuff like that are in, probably not. I would say at the moment that will be a loss. In actual fact, the US gross of Blade Runner 2049 adjusted for inflation, which is about $9 million, was about the same as the original Blade Runner if you released it now. So that's quite interesting. You know, even though Blade Runner's cult had grown, it didn't find the extra audience when it came out, even though it won the Oscar for Best Cinematography, quite rightly so. And, you know, what's Dune going to do? Obviously, you've got the book, the source of the book, you've got the fans of the David Lynch. The David Lynch was a bit of a flop at the time, quite a big flop, actually. So I don't know. It's difficult. The budget of this, I would say, is going to be about the same as Blade Runner 2049. It's going to be between 150 and $200 million. I think the difference here, one thing which will have upped the budget on the Blade Runner film was the fact that Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling were in it. Harrison Ford, you're going to have to pay Harrison Ford a lot of money for such a prestigious star to come back. Now, Dune doesn't have those kind of costs. It's got a top-line cast, but they're not going to be as expensive, I don't think. But it's still a hard sell. It's coming out at Christmas. Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out at that time as well. So there's that, what they call counter-programming argument. Families will go and see Wonder Woman. People who maybe want, like, oh, I want to see something a bit different. There's actually a counter-programming argument with Dune. The last sort of adult sci-fi that did well at the box office was Interstellar. That grossed just under $700 million on a budget of $165 million. But there's a couple of factors in that. At the time it was released in the summer, different market, but you had Matthew McConaughey and he was in his reconnaissance mode there where he just won the Oscar, so he had a top line star. His kind of stock's gone down since then, since he became his own hero at the Oscars. Watched that acceptance speech. And it was directed by Christopher Nolan. Now Christopher Nolan's one of those directors who's got that marquee value. Let's go and see the new Nolan film. Tenet is doing quite well in spite of COVID. And it's got John David Washington in and some top line cast, but it hasn't got a big, you know, they're not a big star yet, John David Washington, but this might make him, it's very good. So Denis Villeneuve, does he have that sort of value? No, he doesn't yet. He's slightly different. Nolan's style, his time bending thing that he does is kind of like it's his USP. And you know, fans of his films, and I'm a fan, we're drawn to him as the new Nolan. Now I'm a Villeneuve fan, I'm like, oh, it's the new Villeneuve. I think the guy's eye's amazing. I have this phrase, I call it Kubrick elect, and that's when a director comes along who I think has got like the sort of the magical skills of a director like Stanley Kubrick, where the production values, the look of the film, the way the sound of music, the way it all interacts is really special. I think Denis Villeneuve has that. He had that in Arrival. He certainly had it in Blade Runner 2049. And if you look at Sicario, I'll check that pronunciation, there was that in spades in that. The other thing which is interesting, he doesn't deal in moral absolutes. None of his films are very complicated morally. And that'll be interesting with Dune. How he gets those ideas into the screenplay. Apparently this is a passion project for him. Interesting fact on the trailer is that a friend pointed out the director Andrei Jodorowsky, who made the famous cult film El Topo back in 71, is it 1970, and Holy Mountain in 1973. He tried to make Dune back in the early 70s. There's a really interesting documentary called Jodorowsky's Dune, and that's great. You should see that. He was going to cast Orson Welles as Baron Harkonnen and stuff like that, and he had amazing concept art done. I think it's by the French guy who did the concept art for Fifth Element, and his name escapes me, apologies. And it might have been Chris Foss as well, might have done some stuff, who's did really amazing science fiction covers for books in the 60s, really unique style. He's influential on Guardians of the Galaxy in the style of that. I think he did some work on that. But anyway, so Jodorowsky's Dune, Pink Floyd were going to do the soundtrack. At this time, Pink Floyd do the soundtracks for the two Bobby Schroeder films, Obscured by Clouds and More. So, getting that top prog rock score, a proggy score for that would have been great. So that's why I think they've done a version of Eclipse. I think that's a little reference to that. So that's an interesting one. Villeneuve, will he kind of reference Lynch as well? Will he kind of take all that element work really well? I'm sure Villeneuve, there's bits he likes of the Lynch film. The film as well, Oscar potential. Again, science fiction's a hard sell. Oscar doesn't like science fiction. I'm pretty sure no science fiction film's ever won the best film Oscar. You get a film like 2001 that had nominations and stuff, but never backed the top prize, even though it's infinitely the greatest film of 1968. It could do. They have 10 categories for Best Picture now. Well, 10 slots. So it's in with a shout there. Villeneuve directors like to vote in their category for directory films, and this is going to be one. Adapted screenplay. Villeneuve does a good job if it's him adapting it. I'm not sure. I haven't checked that. Apologies. That could be something that happens. You got to look at your tech credits, sound effects editing, sound design, special effects, musical score. Hans Zimmer's doing it. That's exciting. Hans Zimmer probably going to be not as on an experimental mode as he did with Nolan, probably doing some cool. Will he reference the famous Toto theme from Dune? That'd be interesting. He might get it in there. It's a great. I can't remember how many notes there are on the motif, but it's great. So there's potential for this to kind of, hoover up 7, 8, 9 Oscar nomination. I'm not sure about acting, but maybe we'll see. But it depends how it is. It depends on the reviews. At the moment, Tenet's doing pretty well with what's happening in the world at the moment. The first week Tenet came out, it grossed $53 million. Now, normally that would be dreadful. That would be a disaster. But by the end of the second week, with the first weekend in America, it had done $146 million. So it's people. When I went to see the pictures, there were 16 people in the cinema, but it was just rolled across loads of screens. So it's just going, look, let's put it on as many screens as possible, and let's see how it does. Let's see how the legs it has, and I suspect it will have good legs. And then when Bond comes out, when Dune, Wonder Woman come out, it'll tail off, and Dune's got a chance with that, especially as well if it gets awards recognition. It'll probably open soft, but it'll just keep that kind of soft thing going because we're in a different world. Total respect to Warner Brothers for rolling this out. I think they're behind Tenet and they're rolling out Wonder Woman. Disney with Mulan, what they've done is it's shit. They should have put it out there, the cinema, for 6 weeks. Given the exhibitors a run, I'd have paid to see it. It would have made some money. Then it could have gone to streaming and charged families £30. Fair enough. All Asian cast, female director, biggest budget ever directed by a female director. What a great time to release and make that statement. But no, it's got a Disney Plus. But we know what Disney are like. We know what they did to Star Wars and beyond. So, yeah. But anyway, that's kind of, I've gone into a different ramble here. But yes, so finalising Dune. From the trailer, the images look stunning. The casting's spot on. I think Deakins is probably in the cinematography. The tech credits on this are going to be stellar. You have the hottest, one of the hottest, along with David Fincher, Christopher Nolan, directors in the world. He has a visual eye. a look that is right up there with the greats in filmmaking, in my opinion. This could be, his moment where he finally steps into greatness. Let's see. I think it's got box office potential, but it'll roll over time, and that will depend on reviews, what's happening with COVID-19, and what's happening with awards recognition. But there's a chance. Could this do Interstellar style grosses? Maybe. Could it do 500 million? I don't know. But the budget is probably going to be nearing $150, $200 million. Then you got print advertising. It's going to have to make at least $500 million to break even, I think, on its whole rollout, as it were. That's the cost of producing it and the advertising. If it goes beyond that, could it do Lord of the Rings style grosses? Could this be, the big, world building epic? The Matrix, they did that with that film as well, or tried to, Star Wars and so on. I don't know. Let's see. But it is adult sci-fi. It's a different sell to those kind of films. So there we go. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was my first thing. I've not really done this before, this type of patter. So let us know what you think. Cheers. Bye.